this amazing platform. And thank you, all of you, for joining this call. So my name is Bela. I am based out of Berkeley, California, and Net Impact is based out of Oakland. And my background is really in social change, particularly with a focus on next generation leaders, and working with next generation leaders in cultivating their emotional intelligence and mindfulness skills as they work to impact change in the world. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Bela. Chloe, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe Kund. I work for Feel Good. I am currently Feel Good's program director, and I am based outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Great. Chloe, maybe do you mind adding a couple sentences of what Feel Good does?
Sure. So Feel Good works with college students who are interested in developing social enterprises on their college campuses to raise money and awareness for the end of extreme poverty by the year 2030.
Awesome. Thanks, Chloe.
Yeah.
Muthoni, hi again.
Hey. Hi, Talis. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be on this call. I run an initiative called My Little Big Thing, which is an SDGs learning platform for university students in Africa, most specifically in Kenya, in Nairobi, where I live and work. I live and work in Nairobi, which is the capital city of Nairobi. And this is an initiative, so My Little Big Thing is a competition we run every year for university students around innovations to do with the SDGs. And we've been doing this for the last 3 years. This is our 4th competition that we're just about to get into. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing best practices, because we've been on the Crew 2030 platform for 1 year now, and we see a lot of potential in what we're doing through the platform as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Muthoni. And thanks for joining us at the end of your day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And Maisha, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. So I'm Aisha Alexander. I work at the Clinton Global Initiative University, which is an initiative of the Clinton Foundation. I am the impact and design manager for the team. And part of my role is I oversee or manage our database that includes over 8,000 student alumni commitment makers, and also, or representing over 10,000, students that represent over 8,000 commitments. And I also oversee our mentor program and help with some of our design curriculum, content engagement work. This year is the first year that we put together a year-round curriculum as a way to engage our college and university students in a more holistic manner, having them go through a program that provides a little more rigor and structure. And we developed our curriculum ourselves along with the help and input of many different people. And so for us, trying to find more ways to do that or to provide that sort of structure and input in a really clear way, in a stronger way, we definitely are looking for those types of best practices, especially when we think about our leadership development strategies and the changing landscape of our student base.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you're in this call. And actually, has anybody here been to CGIU? Only me?
I have not, but I've worked with a lot of students that have been to CGIU, so
That's
very
great.
familiar with it.
That's awesome. Wonderful. Well, I love your work and I'm happy you're here. And
Thank you.
Rita. Hi, Rita.
Hi, sorry I logged off earlier. I was having some trouble signing in, and let me see if I can start my video. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I missed the earlier part of this, so if someone can give me a quick refresh.
we're just getting started introducing ourselves, and we have Bela, who you know because she's on your team, and Chloe from Feel Good, and Maisha from CJIU, and Muthoni from My Little Big Thing, joining from Kenya, and myself.
Awesome. Yay. Well, thanks, Talis. So hi, everyone. I'm Rita Bernardo. I am the program associate at Net Impact, working along with Bela. And so I manage the Up to Us community with our competition. And I use Crew to try to get our current Up to Us team leaders and team members engaged in the community. And so I thought I'd hop on here so that I can get more knowledge on Bela's emotional intelligence leadership curriculum, because that's something that we are trying to implement in our program and on Crew to really help our current student leaders develop that in their leadership. So really excited to be online.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad you're here, Rita.
Yeah.
And without further ado, I'll pass it on to Bela, and Bela, I'll share my screen.
Great.
Lead the way.
And maybe if everyone else is muted, that will block out any background noise as I'm going through. So let me just get back to my screen here. So
Yeah.
I'm not.
And can everybody see the shared screen just before I? Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Let me just, sorry. Okay, here we go. So just really quickly, it was great to hear a little bit about everyone's backgrounds. It's really helpful. And some running themes I heard are young leaders, social entrepreneurship, social change in the world. So this curriculum that I've had the opportunity to build using the Crew platform is really based on a lot of my experience working with social innovators and social entrepreneurs, particularly in that next generation age range, that are super passionate about creating a better world. And so I've brought that perspective, and particularly my coaching experience working individually with these young leaders into the design of this curriculum, and also the design of best practices, or integrating best practices, I should say, into the way this learning is delivered. So without further ado, I'll just dive in. And so you could see the platform. I'm sure some of you have already maybe come across it. And I wanted to just give a little bit of background as to why emotional intelligence in leadership. And so what I've learned along the way, particularly I was director of the Dalai Lama Fellows Program for 5 years. And so I worked with young leaders all over the world from all walks of life, including Nairobi. And what I've seen along the way is that, most leadership programs are focused on that external impact that leaders can make, which is definitely important. But the purpose of emotional intelligence-based leadership is to support these individuals in building key leadership skills, such as adaptability, resilience, awareness, mindfulness, ability to manage emotions, et cetera, while they're working in the world to impact social change. So it's like really that I think the ability to lead from within is absolutely necessary to do leadership work externally more effectively and co-create deeply rooted change that's built in relationship with the community that you're working with, whether that's local or global. And I also thought the statistic I recently came across is really interesting to share, that emotional intelligence is a top 10 trending leadership skill, according to the World Economic Forum. And the demand for EI will increase by 6 times in the next 3 to 5 years. And so as you can see on this, Talis, if you maybe could click on the first track, Welcome to Fellowship Journey. And so what I've done using Crew is, I wanted to bring in blended learning because curriculum is one thing. Curriculum delivers content, it delivers language around skill sets, but blended learning, so if you click on, for example, introduce yourself, allows for virtual learning while also building a community, particularly amongst cohorts of fellows, of social entrepreneurs. So, you can see that in the bottom here, how everyone's had an opportunity to introduce themselves and learn a bit more about each other and respond to each other as well. And so that's the beauty of being able to deliver a curriculum using an online learning platform like this. And then another part of blended learning is dividing individuals into smaller groups. And again, bringing them together through Zoom or GoToTraining, and then deep diving a bit more into the curriculum that's on Crew. And so the group learning circles allow for that deep dive more effectively because the individuals in each cohort are able to read each other's reflections that they're posting. So an example of that is maybe if you go to the leadership development framework, the next track, you can see at the bottom how fellows are responding to what leadership development means to them and why they're excited to learn more about this unique approach to leadership development. And we bring those reflections into the small group learning circles. And another part of blended learning is one-on-one coaching, if there's resources for that. And so again, in the one-on-one coaching, I bring a lot of the individual's reflections as well as their homework assignments that they post on this platform into the coaching to further cultivate, really important skills. So that's a little bit about blended learning and how platforms like this really support the effectiveness of blended learning. And then just a little bit of background, or if you could go back to that leadership development framework track, what I view, it's in the first track, yeah, that one. So I'm currently training as a meta coach under Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence program. And I found, if you could see in this chart, that the way that he lays out emotional intelligence, if you want to scroll up just a little bit so the chart's visible. Yeah. The way he lays out emotional intelligence is incredibly familiar and applicable to leadership. And so there's the fundamental skills, and the fundamental skills are self-awareness, emotional management, adaptability, positive outlook. Building these fundamental skills are the necessary foundation then to be able to cultivate greater empathy, organizational awareness, and relationship management skills. So this is the framework that I've adopted to introduce each of these competencies within this framework. So I'm going to pause for a second. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay.
No question. I just want to I just want to share that it's very much above average what I see. I think the way you've been able to craft questions and invitations for participation in each of the steps. I think like getting people to so thoughtfully answer this lengthy reflections for curriculum is not something you see very often. So that's partly, yeah, that's one of the like amazing like green flags, like, hey, there's something special here. That people are invested to to share from a vulnerable place, which I'm sure you'll tell us more about.
Yeah, but to that point, what I will say is that, and again, I'm going to talk about blended learning, because when someone first starts an online curriculum, there's more motivation and inspiration. You're starting something new. But in all of my experience, and even with this program, this is particularly a fellowship cohort I'm leading around plant-based food. And these are fellows from across the Net Impact chapter. And I've seen this with Dalai Lama fellows as well. So that engagement in the online platform will taper off if there's not the learning circles, and if possible, the coaching, because you need that connection, really, because if that connection is not there to other individuals that share how are they receiving this, how are they responding to it, what's coming up for them, and then the coaching is the mirroring. So as a coach, I'm able to practice deep listening and ask meaningful questions to the social entrepreneur who's coming up with so many challenges as they're trying to do their work in the world. And bring them back to the learning in the curriculum, bring them back to their reflections and to practices. So blended learning is just absolutely vital to the curriculum on a platform really being used to its fullest potential. So a little bit, if you let's show some more of the curriculum. So if we go to the track on the second track, I suppose, the becoming aware, becoming an inspired leader. And then you could see here that, CREW allows for this rating system. So that's how I can keep track of, hey, is this content speaking to this audience? If they're only giving it 2 stars, that's good feedback for me, because I can see how it needs to be and improve, the language needs to change. And so if you just click on the first section there, business case for mindfulness, what I try to do is make this as multimedia and interactive as possible. So you can see, there's diagrams there's quotes that I bring in from leaders in the social change world, in the corporate world, particularly because with Net Impact, most of our network is in business school. And some of the sections also have, videos as part of this. So there's an opportunity to really, here's a video at the end to, allow yourself to be guided through a mindfulness practice. But why do I even start with this track, inspiring leadership and the role of mindfulness in inspiring leadership? So everything that we want to impact and change externally begins with self-awareness, which simply means our awareness of our thought patterns and emotions, and how this in turn impacts our perceptions, our actions, our relationships at work and in our communities, and ultimately our ability to motivate and inspire others as leaders. And increasingly, as we're working more and more in front of the computer, we are distracted every 40 seconds while working in front of a computer. So 40, that's like more than half of a minute. And so imagine where are our minds in these 40 seconds? And they're usually in the future or they're in the past. That's the only other 2 places they can be if they're not in the present. And when our minds are in the future, especially, that can be the root of a lot of anxiety, fear, worry, doubt, whatever it is. And so that's why that's why I introduce mindfulness to begin with. And then in section 2, I really start going into what self-awareness is and different ways to understand it. And I bring in a lot of thought leaders into this curriculum. So I would say the richness of this curriculum is grounded in thought leadership in the EI world, in the social change world, in the organizational psychology world. So for example, I've brought in Tasha Urich, who's a really well-known organizational behavioral psychologist, and she has an interesting way of explaining self-awareness, and that it's both internal awareness as well as external. So how well do we know ourselves, but also how well do we understand how others perceive us? And understanding how others perceives us is absolutely vital to being an inspiring leader, creating influence, building relationships with stakeholders, with community leaders. I feel like I'm talking a lot. So let's see, I'm trying, there's so much content here. I really want to, and just looking at the time as well. So I think we could maybe, there's the rest of the sections in this entire module or track are focused on mindfulness, self-awareness, and playing to your strengths as part of that. So part of awareness is knowing, what are my strengths, what are areas of improvement, and what are effective ways of learning about our strengths. So I present a couple of different sort of tools that you could use to learn more about your strengths. And you can see that the fellows in this cohort, really, and one of the questions I ask them is, as you're learning about your strengths, what's surprising you? How is that impacting the way that you're executing your project, the way you're thinking about strategy? So I'm always bringing emotional intelligence, connecting it back to their leadership work, and the work that they're so passionate about impacting, or the change that they're passionate about impacting. The other thing I wanted to point out also is this, in section 5, this leadership reflection journal. So, reflection, I can't emphasize enough self-reflection, how vital that is for, again, for leadership. And when we think about it, how often do we regularly reflect? And life is so busy. We have so many demands, so many expectations on us, and we barely have time to process our emotions, process this past week, process what we're learning, process like what triggered us this past week. And the purpose of a leadership reflection journal is to have a consistent practice, whether it's daily, weekly, maybe even monthly, to come back to a consistent set of questions that you set aside time in your calendar to respond to. And then over the course of time, over the period of time, you can start seeing patterns, which help you to assess, okay, where am I growing? Where am I struggling? And so you can see how the fellows in this cohort, actually, I think the leadership reflection responses, are they at the bottom here, Talis, or are they in a different track? Okay, I think they're in a separate track. So if you go back to the dashboard, yeah, the journal here. So again, what I've seen is that, it's a week by week opportunity for them to reflect to questions. And there was a lot of engagement, but it started to taper off if there wasn't an opportunity for them to come back and connect with each other about what they're learning. Because then it just feels like you're reflecting in a vacuum, and you're not sure who cares about what you're reflecting on. And ultimately the purpose is for your own growth, of course. But I think a huge part of inner cultivation and inner growth is being able to reflect back and learn through your community, whether that community is your cohort of fellows, or, you know, another group of people that are in a program with you. And of course, also through the individual coaching. Another module that I would like to sort of talk about is this number 4. I'm using the word module, sorry, I mean track, but managing your emotions, which is the 4th track. And again, you could see the stars there, which is good feedback for me. But once you start cultivating greater self-awareness, what happens is you start to become aware of your thought patterns. You start to become aware of your emotions, and particularly what are things that trigger you in life? What are things that trigger you at work? And by trigger, what I mean is things that just set you off or shift your emotions, just like that. One moment you're feeling fine, and then you get a frustrating email from someone, or a colleague says something in a meeting, whatever it is. But one moment you're fine, and then the next moment, all of a sudden you're feeling down, worried, frustrated, or so anything that impacts your ability to just focus and be productive and creative, and do your work. And this is particularly important for leadership because nothing turns out as we planned, especially in the world of social change. You know, we have, especially as young leaders, that, and I've coached so many up to this point, I've individually coached more than 100 next gen leaders from all over the world. And so regardless of their faith, regardless of their socioeconomic background, their culture, a common through line I've seen in all of them is their deep passion to impact change. And because of that, they, you know, also have these great visions of how they want to scale, how they want to create that change. And then they create these strategies, and it's all beautiful on paper. And then as they go about it, you start to realize, oh, wow, nothing in the real world operates on this linear plane that I've envisioned in my mind. In the real world, there's so many unanticipated events that come up, conflicts that may arise, you know, funding issues, you know, you're working with red tape, bureaucracy, so things are not moving along as quickly as you had imagined, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So then there's a lot of ambiguity in leadership. There's a lot of uncertainty. And being able to lead in ambiguity, which is you know, in huge part that involves having the awareness of your emotions and being able to regulate your emotions in the midst of this uncertainty, is crucial for ultimately being able to execute your project, ultimately to be able to have that impact that you envisioned. And just to give you actually a real life example, just yesterday, I had a coaching call with one of the fellows from this plant-based food cohort. And like all the other fellows in his cohort, he had a pretty grand plan of what he wanted to do throughout his academic year to build more awareness about plant-based food as it relates to climate change. The year has been very busy for him. He's also, you know, working, and you know, he unfortunately, things just in his personal life haven't turned out the way that, you know, he was expecting to. And that's, of course, interfered, or not interfered, but, it, you know, our personal and our professional, we try to separate them, but that's actually just a false notion, because we're human beings and we bring our whole selves everywhere we go. And so I was on a call with him, and he was just overcome by anxiety and disappointment, you know, a lot of disappointment in himself, that I'm nowhere where I thought I was going to be at this point in the fellowship year. I'm not impacting the way that I had envisioned. I'm not scaling. And that's how he started out the call. And I just took a breath, and I invited him to just pause. And I was like, let's just take a step back first, and just take a moment to come back into our bodies, come back into this present moment. Take a breath. How often do we do that? And that was such a surprising and pleasant invitation for him, because and that's what he shared. He's like, wow, I don't think anyone's invited me to do that in quite some time. And we talked about the root of his anxiety, and how the root of it is his mind and his thoughts are in the future, and they're not in this present moment. And in this present moment, everything is actually probably okay. It might not be ideal, but it's okay. And feeling that, experiencing that, everything's okay right now, a lot of that anxiety started calming down. And what happens is some of that clarity starts forming in your mind about what are next steps I can take that make sense, that are actionable. And then you start to gain back control. It's empowering. And we ended the call, and all of this happened in less than 45 minutes. We started the call with him coming overwhelmed, like ready to actually drop out of the fellowship program. And we ended the call 45 minutes later with excitement, creativity, ideas about actionable next steps he can take. It was amazing. And all because I invited some breath-based practices, which is a part of mindfulness. And that allowed him to come back to self-awareness and regulate his emotions. So that's a little bit of EI, and why it's so essential for leadership, why it's essential for social change and social impact. We're so focused on wanting to change the world and do it as quickly as possible. But yet so many problems persist. And then especially with all the demands on us, when we feel like we're not working at the speed that we envisioned, so many social entrepreneurs actually don't feel confident in following through, that they're able to achieve this vision. But when you cultivate that EI from within, you build your resiliency, you develop a positive outlook, you cultivate self-compassion. And that's another part I didn't even get into in this call, but self-compassion is so important to be able to lead effectively. And a lot of young people I've worked with, when they first learn about self-compassion, it just sounds like this lofty thing that maybe only a certain type of person has time for. But when they experience self-compassion through guided practices and reflection, it completely transforms how they see themselves. It transforms their thought patterns, and it builds their resilience ultimately. So I think I'll stop there, and I want to make sure there's space for conversation. Questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bela. And before we move into questions and conversation, I noticed that we have two more people joined the call. Sylvia, hi. Do you mind just sharing your name, your organization, and your role and where you're joining from?
Hi, sure. My name is Sylvia. I'm joining from Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm a strategy and program consultant with the Euphrates Institute.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And there's another person, but it just says Jay Levine.
Hi, my name is Julia.
Oh, she dropped off.
Oh, Julia, we lost you.
So Julie is actually one of our colleagues,
Okay.
and just joined Net Impact a couple of weeks ago.
Wonderful.
Join back in a second.
Awesome. And actually, I see one more person. Hi, John. I don't know when exactly you joined, but do you mind sharing where you're joining us from? What organization? Oh, you're muted, John. Let me unmute you.
Hi, sorry about that. My name is Julia. My battery just died on my computer. I am also with Net Impact. I just started at the organization, and I'll be working with our Up to Us competition, which is a competition alumni group. So these are young individuals that are interested in economics, politics, as well as business, and really trying to learn the best way to engage them here at the organization.
Awesome. Very nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I'm John Odner. I'm with the Grand Human Project, and we're trying to help people build spiritual communities. And just got launched with this website this past month. So we're very new to the whole process.
Thanks for joining, John. We have 5 minutes left, I believe, in our call. So I would just love to hear if there's any questions or comments that we can have right now. If not, I can create an email group and we can continue the conversation via email or on the platform.
I have a question. This was all such great content, and I was doing my best to take as many notes as possible, but I was wondering if we would be able to access some of your modules and tracks for content that we might want to use with our students.
So we are going to send out a follow-up form after this. And one of the questions on that form is, are you interested in learning a little bit more about the content, and can we have a conversation? Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that'll be that opportunity.
Great. Thank you.
So I have a question as well. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I think Phila, thank you so much for such great leadership insights. I came onto this call not quite sure what to expect, and so I really enjoyed just going through the content that you have on the Net Impact platform, and especially, you know, I've taken a lot of notes around the leadership reflection journal, and I'm looking forward to seeing or filling out the follow-up form. My question, though, is related to just how you manage your content on the platform. I was curious how long you've been running this platform for, and how you recruited your members, because I see you have a lot of engagement. I'm so envious. 22 comments, and you know, things that we're just dreaming about in My Little Big Thing. So I just wanted to know, how did you recruit members, so that and how often do you post content? Just how do you generally manage the platform so that you can keep the engagement fresh, the content fresh and relevant and all that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the members were recruited through Net Impact's vast network. And so Net Impact is, you know, more than 430 chapters from around the world with student members and professional members. And so this program was an opportunity for the Net Impact members to apply, and they were selected into this particular fellowship program. And so in advance of the fellowship launching, I created all the curriculum and had it ready in this platform, but they don't see all of the tracks right away. So I'm allowed through Crew to release each track according to a schedule that I've created. And in terms of all the comments that you've seen from the fellows, again, I think what's really crucial to keep that engagement going is connection. And so if they were just on this platform and reading curriculum, in the beginning, there's engagement, but I'm pretty sure it tapers off. It's just what I've seen through all the other leadership curriculums that I've been and fellowship programs that I've been working with. So the connection through small group learning, as well as the one-on-one coaching, if possible, because I understand one-on-one coaching is a lot of resources. And, you know, with Dalai Lama Fellows, it was a lot of my time. But even just small group learning really increases engagement. Not sure if I answered all your questions. In terms of managing the content, as I'm getting feedback, both through like the stars that I showed you, but also through forms that I send the fellows. So I just sent all of the fellows a mid-year temperature check to assess, you know, what, not necessarily what they're learning, but how they're feeling about the content, how it's applicable to their work. That gives me feedback in the middle of their fellowship to go back and continue to tweak parts of the tracks that haven't been released yet.
Okay. Thank you. That's great.
Sure.
Thank you. I know it's 1 minute until time. If you need to check out right at noon or whatever your time is in your time zone, please feel free. Thank you so much for joining. And Bela, thank you so much for sharing this content and your process with us. I don't know if you have 5 more minutes in case anybody wants to linger around
I
for
have
a few
time,
more questions.
so I do. Yeah.
Great. Are there any other comments or thoughts, questions?
I wanted to say hi to Sylvia. I know Janessa, so it's nice to have.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would love to connect more. Thank you so much for all of this.
I guess I have a question around how you, so you have a group of 22 fellows who are already committed to this. How do you break them up into small groups? Do you have a process for that? And then in what ways? Is it all online calls, or in what ways do you connect those groups besides the curriculum?
So I try to break them up into issue areas if it's possible. So for example, with Dalai Lama Fellows, there were fellows working on gender equity, fellows working on health, things. So ideally, it's great to break them up by issue area. However, if you're working with a global group of people, that gets complicated in terms of lining up schedules and such. So then we look at geographic location, just for, you know, being for logistical reasons. The plant-based fellows are all US based, but even that, with all of the different time zones, it's by geographic location. And we connect over Zoom or go through training. I think just being able to even see each other's faces makes such a difference, and keeping that connection alive.
Thank you. What a value add. I also just want to say, to have access to a peer group that's supporting each other, and then those one-on-one coaching sessions that almost sound like therapy. It's just like, what a blessing into people's lives to have access to that kind of supportive environment.
It's funny that you said the coaching sounds like therapy.
In a good way, in a helpful way, right? It's expensive.
It's, I think really it's, how often do we feel seen and listened to deeply? How often do we feel that we have someone else's presence completely? And what I've seen with young leaders, with social entrepreneurs, is they put so much pressure on themselves and they have so many expectations. And just to be listened and mirrored, really, so that the mirroring connects you back to the answers within yourself. So absolutely.
Thank you. So it's our last couple of minutes. How about we go around and give everyone an opportunity to say, a few words how this experience was for you, and that way we can all say our goodbyes one by one. Does anybody want to start? Or can I ask maybe your teammates, Rita and Julia, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess I can start. Since we just introduced EI, or we're starting to introduce it into our crew community, this definitely has given me like the space to really understand more of the EI curriculum that Bela and my colleague Hillary has been working into our competition. But yeah, I really found this very helpful too with my role as someone who works closely with our student leaders and how I can ensure, or at least like see how I can make recommendations in how we present material on crew and how I can tailor that to when I'm hopping on calls with student leaders. So yeah, this is really awesome, Bela. I found it very insightful for my role.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think this is really helpful in understanding more of the work that's going on at Net Impact around EI and how that can be built into our curriculum in a more like cohesive and holistic way with students that and young leaders that we work with. And just feeling very grateful to be able to work with Bela here at Net Impact and really learn from her around this.
That's awesome. Thanks, Julia. And Maisha, can I put you on the spot before we leave to hear a little bit from you?
Sorry, I was muted. So I think that that was really wonderful. You really hit on some issues and some concerns that we've had in our cohort. We have a few hundred students and we get a lot of help from our alumni mentors. And I think it would be really helpful for the alumni mentors if we can take some of the things that or some of the ideas that you presented, like talking about managing anxiety. Like the entrepreneurs and leaders in our group are on the younger side, and the uptick in anxiety this year has been unbelievable. We've been trying to figure out why are these students so anxious? And so I really sort of locked on to really thinking about how we bring our whole selves everywhere that we go, and trying to find ways to encourage them not to separate, but to be more in the present. And from my point of view, I think that our most effective ways, the coaching sessions are something that we do with our mentors, but those small group work sessions, I think we need to do maybe a better job of supporting our mentors with giving them some of this information to help them manage anxiety so that the students can feel more empowered, as you say, to go about the work and be present right where they are. So I thought that was extremely helpful. I mean, I got a lot out of this, and the way everything is set up is incredible. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. I'm glad that it was valuable in some way.
Thank you, Maisha. And yeah, what an interesting and like hard, right, times and phenomenon just to see our young people. And I mean, even in all of our lives, that uptick in anxiety in our communities, but how wonderful that we can so like immediately reflect upon it and identify it, and as leaders of the communities that we're each a part of, how can we take action? So yeah, thank you all for being that person who young people are engaging with and interacting with and being seen by. So I just think there's no better work to be done in the world right now, as so many things change. Like that never changes. The need to be, like you said, Bela, seen and supported and connected to communities to create change together, to feel grounded together. I just feel like that's universally always just essential work for our time. So
yeah, one thing I've been thinking about actually is maybe developing a separate curriculum just focused on resilience and compassion, because I feel like just there's so much work to be done there with this generation. So yeah. Thank you,
Bela. John, any last words?
Just thank you. I only caught the tail end of this call, it was really great to get a glimpse into what you're doing, and you know, just look at these different tracks you have. They all look very interesting.
Thank you, John.
So thank you for that glimpse.
Thank you. And we did record the call, so we'll be sure to share it probably by Monday. Who else am I missing? Mathoni.
I think I already said, I think I'll just say thank you. It's been really interesting. Hello, am I still on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, because there's another call coming in on my phone. So it was great to see how well organized all your material is on your platform. And so, and as I said earlier, I appreciate all the great leadership insights, and the emotional intelligence learning was something exciting for me. And so I'll just say thank you, and I'm looking forward to seeing what more there is when we get the follow-up form. So thank you so much for your time, for sharing.
Thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Mathoni. And Bela, any last words before we close it out?
I'm excited to hear the feedback through the forums, and if there's interest in further connection, and maybe going through one of these tracks in more detail. Yeah, I think I'm just excited to see what emerges from this. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Bela, and thanks to Net Impact for lending your time. And thank you all for joining. Hope you have a great weekend and a wonderful day. And yeah, we'll stay in touch. Feel free to reach out to Bela or myself for any follow-ups on this call.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.